The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
To le boss. Je m'appelle David and I cannot do a French accent, but welcome aboard. How are we all doing? I have had an unbelievable Saturday night watching one of the most important games of the World Cup last night, because I was saying to my friends, everybody, that if England managed to beat France last night, I was terrified that they would go on and win the tournament. So I'm buzzing. I hope everyone else is buzzing. Mark, how are you doing, mate? Regan, how are you doing, mate? I hope you're feeling just as excited as I am about this wonderful Sunday morning. How are we all doing, folks?
David, I'm doing well. The only thing that'll be going home is Celtic, because we are playing Aberdeen next Saturday, and I cannot wait. 12:30, I'll be all there. Celtic gear on, ready to go. David, Aberdeen is going to be great, and I'm so glad to be here this Sunday morning.
Yes, Mark, that's where the real football starts, mate. We're getting we're getting at the tail end of this World Cup, and we're approaching seeing the first game of the return of the season. Are you looking forward to it, mate?
I'm glad all this shite's finished, mate, to be honest with you. I can't go that international football. It's a lot of nonsense. But last night, I felt a bit relieved, because I thought if they won that last night, sometimes you get teams that are just that shite, they can actually win a tournament in England for in that category. I think they've got some good players, and 2 penalties they got last night and they still couldn't get through. So I'm just a bit relieved myself, mate. I couldn't stomach them winning a tournament. I'd have to move. I'd have to move to Rwanda or something, mate. I couldn't live here.
Well, before we go any further, let's get all the good stuff out the way. So if you enjoy what we do, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, you comment, you share with all your friends. Hit that like button, hit that wee bell so you know that we're on. Just do all that good stuff that Phil and Boise like to make sure that we get out at the start of the show. I don't really have much more to give on all that good stuff, so I'm just going to get cracking on. We know that we've got a new format on the bus on the Sunday, where I go and scour the old papers and see if there's anything worth talking about. Plenty on the England game last night, plenty about them across the city, because the world beaters again, beating Bayern Leverkusen in a friendly at Ibrox yesterday. However, there wasn't too much Celtic. There's not too much Celtic, as if we've not been doing anything. However, I did manage to find a couple of stuff, Mark. Ange he thinks that we'll just pick up where we left off after the boys have had, the boys have had a good rest and some good training exercises out in Australia and Portugal, and a couple of holidays for some of the guys. And obviously we've got our World Cup stars. Some of them are on their way home. Some of them are heading into a semi-final. We've got Ange says here that most importantly, the whole squad is in good condition, and we've got match minutes into a lot of our players over here. So that's good to hear. And one of those players, Mark, was Callum McGregor. How are you feeling about seeing our captain getting back into the squad?
Well, it's been that long with football, you kind of forgot how much an impact the guy can make. You know what I mean? Really interesting to see how the dynamic works in midfield now, because I think Haksabanovic is definitely entitled to assume he's got a place in that team more often than what he was before. I think McGregor just slots back into the 6/8 role again, and then Hatate and O'Reilly kind of move forward. Haksabanovic, you might see him playing on the right hand side, kind of number 10, even like Tom Roderick role. You know what I mean? But the thing about the press, they never follow themselves to write good things about Celtic, mate. So if they're not in the papers, that means they're not getting bad to say about us, which is pretty good. Let them give their sycophantic views on Rangers all they want. That is great. I mean, I said before, like, this is what they do. They line up friendly matches, they'll get a positive result, and they just go on that roller coaster that everything's brilliant and nobody can beat them, nobody can match them. It's quite similar to what England went through last night, because it always makes it a bit more satisfying when they see no other outcome at all other than them succeeding. It's in their minds, it's not possible. So long may that continue, that the papers bum them up, because when you got that high, mate, you get one hell of a dump when you fall.
So Regan, it goes on to say that the boys have worked hard and probably felt the effects of it in today's game at times, but it was a positive week. We got some minutes into the players, particularly McGregor and Starfelt, who haven't played a lot recently, and they'll have all come through it really well. So it's good to hear that not only Callum McGregor is getting some minutes in his legs, but also the star man at the back, Mr. Carl Starfelt. How are you feeling about our centre back options? That he's on the return, as well as our new Japanese signing coming in as well.
Yeah, and what I did find interesting, I don't know if you've seen the interview, David, but he did say that Kobayashi was a project signing, and he would kind of bed them in over the next 6 months. I did find that interesting.
That is quite interesting. I suppose it might be quite. I can understand that though with the amount of centre backs we have. We've got Jens till the end of the season with an option to buy, and obviously he's fighting for a place with now that Carl Starfelt's going to go back into his left-sided centre-back position, which is obviously where we've signed Kobayashi to play. So it might be a little bit difficult for him to get into the team, and we've also seen that even with Hatate, even though he did hit the ground running when he first came into Celtic, he did kind of fall off a cliff a little bit, and he put it down to him struggling to adapt to the culture, the lifestyle of coming to Glasgow. Maybe I'm just taking a more cautious approach with Kobayashi to allow him to kind of bed himself in and be ready for next season, which could suggest that Jens won't be joining us next season. Would you say that's fair?
Maybe aye.
I don't think we buy him, that boy, if Jens is going to be there next season. To be fair, I mean, I quite like what you said there about you don't need to rush the boy in. I don't think there's any chance he's going to dislodge Jens or Starfelt next to Carter-Vickers unless injuries happen. So, I mean, we found out to our own kind of demise a wee bit with guys like Hatate and that. They started really well last season, but then they faded away really quickly because their fitness can only be so good. It can only be at a certain level, and these guys had just finished a full season and went right into the most intense part of the season straight away. So this guy's maybe get, as Regan said, a wee bit of run up to next season. Let him bed into settle into the club, get used to the culture a bit more, get some game time with no real pressure that is expected to come in and start straight away. That's a bit of luxury for a guy who's come in with a wee bit of fanfare. So I think that's good for Celtic. The guys get a wee bit of leeway, and I agree. I agree with Regan. I don't think Ayer's sitting. Ayer. God. Yes, he's signing. But God, I could have suffered Ayer again. God.
Another Scandinavian centre half.
Aye.
Easily mixed up.
Aye, well, true, mate. No, I think if it was up to me, I mean, I think I would put. If there can only be so many players in the squad, and I think if, like say, Welsh, and that they'll need to go on loan as well, or they need to make a decision what his place in Celtic is if he's got one. So there could be 2 defenders leaving the club this time. By this time,
I don't think he's got a place.
next year. You know what I mean?
I know people like Stephen Welsh. I know they think he's the Scottish Rio Ferdinand and all that, Mark, but he's.
Oh,
I just think he's
fucking Franz Ferdinand, man. Like, there's no danger, man. That guy, honestly, see if anybody's as bad at their job as what he is, I mean, they'd be punted a long time ago. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, he was kept to fill that Scottish contingent for the Champions League places, I think. And he needs somebody who was of at least A level, and he just falls into the category where he's at least at A level. That level just happened to be a very low watermark, to be honest with you. But but all good things in defence. I think Carter-Vickers coming back, gave him a wee rest of the World Cup. Hopefully he's back in place. I'm really hoping we don't go to Bustalgia with the same back four that played yesterday. I don't think Jens or Starfelt play good football unless Carter-Vickers is there next to him. He holds that full back four, I think, and solidifies Joe Hart.
Do you know if we'll get CCV back for the Aberdeen game, or do you think Ange will give him a wee holiday since he's?
Well, he's on holiday just now, isn't he? He must be on holiday just now.
He's on. I think he'll be having a rest just now. That's a difficult one to say. I don't know if he'll be back because I know did Ange not say he was willing to give them obviously time to recover from obviously being out in Qatar. Would you be happy, Regan, if we were to play Starfelt straight back in that side alongside Welsh, or would you play Jens and maybe put Starfelt back in the Carter-Vickers role if Carter-Vickers isn't back in time?
I know Mark's not happy with Jens and Starfelt, but I think for me, I think that we should be playing Jens and Starfelt next week because I don't want to go into a big game at Aberdeen and see Steve Welsh at the back because that will just send the absolute fear through me. I mean, I know that Celtic more often than not go up to Aberdeen and win, but that would just be typical Celtic to go back to for the break and get beat off Aberdeen, and for the gap only be 6 points. But see what you said on McGregor, David. I think it's a good point because see when McGregor left Celtic for being injured, Celtic were only 2 points ahead, and now we're 9 points ahead. So I think that just shows you that we've managed the squad well. I think it was me. I think it was me and Terry that said if Celtic go to the break level on points with Rangers, that would be maybe a great turnover. But I think the fact that we've got a 9 point advantage is great, and the fact that we've got Moy, who's in a good World Cup, with McGregor, who's just back, and we've got Rio Haidati, who's not played much football because Japan chose not to pick him, and I still don't see why they didn't pick him, because as I said on this programme before, I think that Rio Haidati will be the player of the year this year.
Regan, your choice of 2 centre-back pairings for Aberdeen, that's on the assumption that Carter-Vickers isn't back. A comment came up from Boyce himself saying there's no excuse for Carter-Vickers not to be in the Aberdeen's lineup, well, obviously against Aberdeen.
When were they knocked out, David, last week? When was the USA knocked out at the World Cup?
They were knocked out last week and Carter-Vickers played one game. He's absolutely right. There is no excuse for Carter-Vickers not to play. If the World Cup wasn't happening, I'm sure the Champions League was condensed for the World Cup to play. So the fixture list would have still been just as congested as it always is at this time of year. Where Carter-Vickers would be playing every week. He's not played while he's been out there, bar one game. And he's obviously he's been training out there, but no, there's no reason why Carter-Vickers just. And I'm surprised if Ange. I am actually surprised that Ange is giving people holidays because, this whole we don't rest until the season's over kind of attitude he's always kind of said. I don't know if it's maybe been contractual where they have to be given the break.
I think you've got to unwind, David, after... Sorry, mate. I think you've got to see after that in high-intensity atmosphere of the World Cup. I mean, all right, he might not be playing 90 minutes on the park, but the training will be very intense. It will be very, very... It'll be an elite level and very warm temperatures. I think the body needs to unwind a wee bit after that.
Yep.
I really do.
It'll be another week away since he got knocked out, though. That's been 2 weeks.
I totally agree. I think if that guy's able to walk, he should be playing for Celtic. You know what I mean? That's my opinion.
Yeah.
If he's back in the country, he might find that he's maybe allowed to come back maybe midweek. Maybe he's been told, report back for Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Funny, mate.
Conditioning work.
I'm not being funny, mate, but if I'm Carter-Vickers and I'm seeing, I've been away playing for USA, they've brought in another centre back. Now I know we're saying, well, he's probably going to get bedded in and blah blah blah, but Carter-Vickers isn't in Ange's head. He doesn't know what the thought process is right now. He should be going, holy shit, I've been away. Another centre back's came in who's looks like had a very good season in the J League. I didn't want to be taking a holiday. I want to make sure that my position's completely safe when I come back, because when I've seen what I've seen with Starfelt, when he's been moved into his more comfortable position of the right-sided centre back, he's been more than fine, I think, playing in that position. And Carter-Vickers knows he plays beside Starfelt. He knows that he's a good centre half that can be relied upon. I would be worried about my place in the squad, even though we all know Carter-Vickers is probably the best centre back that we have at the club. But he can't be banking on that he'll walk straight back in that side if he's getting a wee holiday. He should be itching to get back in that team. As far as I'm concerned, he should be definitely wanting to make sure that his position's safe when he comes back from the World Cup. Yeah.
And the need about it, as you say, they can't get in Angie's head, so he's got to come back and show he's number one. You know what I mean? And that's not just on the training ground. That's like every day of the week. You know what I mean? He's got to command, because don't forget he was a captain when Carl McGregor was away, so he's been put to this high level, this elite level within the club, where he's been trusted to guide the team through Carl McGregor's absence, and he's got to show that he's capable of doing that without the armband, and I think he is, and I think his mentality. I mean, the guy's been out on loan so many times, so it may be a wee bit that he finds he's found a home at Celtic, and I think he's thrived under that. You know what I mean? And I think our defence, I think, totally rests on him. I don't think there's a position in our squad that relies solely on one player more than defence. I think we can chop and change and take players out of the park. But see, Carter-Vickers, the minute he comes out of that defence, it sets the cat amongst the pigeons. You know, it really does unsettle me. I think Joe Hart looks very anxious when he's facing strikers, etc., and he's got, like I say, Jens and Starfelt together. Jens has been a great signing for Celtic. I agree with him. Monty said that he should sign him. I think he's been good for Celtic. He's been, I know it's no great mark, but he's been good for Celtic. I think he's very able to do the job. I think if they could just get a hybrid of Starfelt's ability to header the ball well and Jens' ability to be in the right spaces, I think he'd maybe get a good defender out of the two of them if he put them together. But on the ball, the two of them just look head them, scare them, sort of stuff. And that's what only. And when I came in, that's one of the things that I pinpointed is Jens' ability to pass the ball, and his clips were showing he was brilliant on the ball. He's been kind of showing up a wee bit. He's been making. I don't know if maybe he feels like he has to move forward, like in these lung busting runs. You see, like say Aya used to do and Boyata, etc. used to do and run forward. Maybe he feels like he's not capable of doing that as such. He's a bit nervous about it, but he still feels like he has to do it, and it's taken away from his actual what he's good at, and that's just making clear passes and making them well. You know what I mean? And I think if the option is to keep him, I don't think the money will be a problem. I just can't see us having three players fighting for one position, because I think Starfelt, Jens, and this Kobayashi, I think the three of them would absolutely feel like any one of them can step in and part of Carter-Vickers, unless Celtic are expecting offers in summer for Carter-Vickers. I would hope no, but maybe that's in the back of their heads as well. They've got to kind of build.
What's the only thing is we're marking that Carter-Vickers is still a very young age for a player. I think he's only 24, so they're probably thinking that they can make value in him as well.
I think what Monty's saying there, Regan, what he's saying, Mark. I think Jens just needs to settle down and relax a bit. I'm totally on board with that. There is times where he maybe does look a bit lost at times and maybe a bit anxious, and he just needs to just settle things down and just take your time. Well, I know it's easy to say when we're watching it on the screen, but if he could just get a wee bit more composure when he's in that sort of situation, I think he'd be a lot better. I think also Jens has had he's had different partners at the centre back position a few times as well. He's not had that steady, always got Carter-Vickers beside him like what Starfelt had last year. That sort of steady partnership. He's kind of been either he's getting Welsh one week, and when Carter-Vickers is back, it's Carter-Vickers back in, and then if he had a steady partnership, I think he'd probably feel a little bit more settled. Regan, quickly going back to Carter-Vickers, did you manage to watch his game in Qatar? I did manage to watch it, and I thought he was an absolute standout. He was an absolute colossus, a monster. Nobody was getting past him. He just put in a really strong performance like we see every week. He looked as if he was just playing in the Celtic shirt, I felt, and I was actually quite surprised that he didn't give enough of a headache for his manager to almost pick him for the next knockout game. I thought he'd done well enough to be in consideration, and from what I saw, the American press were also extremely impressed. And while you answer that, I'm just going to quickly nip away and grab my phone charger because my phone is about to die and I don't want to leave you hanging. So we'll be back in 2 seconds.
How very unprofessional. Call yourself a professional.
They kept a clean sheet in that game against Iran, and he played very well, Mark. So I was surprised myself because I thought, right, he's gave a headache for the manager. But also, the game before that, USA didn't really play too well in defence against Wales. So I was kind of thinking he's done well to do well for himself. So I was a bit confused, but I don't know, Mark. You know what top level sports like? Sometimes there's a wee bit of politics involved as well. Maybe the manager just fancies that player more than he fancies Carter-Vickers.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got a long-standing relationship. Sometimes it's not all about that player's had a good game. But I suppose the other thing we need to say as well is that if USA lost that game, then USA was going to be out in the World Cup at the group stage phase. So the fact that game was a must-win for USA. So the fact that he's kept a clean sheet, I was surprised.
I think he got a lot of praise after the match. I think a lot of the US journalists were kind of tweeting and posting about how good he played, because I think he was basically did what he did for Celtic. He just does everything, does the simple things really well, and just finds himself barging guys out the way. He just controls the defence, in my opinion. When he's in the middle of the box, he's like a colossus, And I think even in the World Cup, you'll find that a certain level of opposition won't be able to get by him. You know what I mean? And I think they maybe chose that match for a reason. As you said there, if they lost that match, they maybe been put at the World Cup. So they've put a lot of faith in him. But I really do think that managers have got their favourite players. Managers sometimes just think certain players fit their style. Yeah. Doesn't necessarily mean that they think they're better. And it could well be the case that Carter-Vickers and the manager of the USA just he feels like the centre back that he's got, the new number one, is the best option for a different type of game. And in the one he did come in, and I think it was Iran, he played really well and he showed up well and he done the club proud. You know what I mean? I think if he was to be getting a move on the back of his performance in the World Cup on that one game, I think he would go for a few million. He's definitely a player that Celtic should be tying in for as long as possible. I know he's just signed, but I think he's at a level where he's going to excel in Europe. I think people will be looking at him, and more so when he's playing at the World Cup and the Champions League. And I don't think he's actually really been a bad player in the Champions League either. I know we lost a lot of goals, but he missed some games for Celtic in the Champions League.
He didn't play a lot of the games, I don't think.
Aye, and when the games he did play, he's up against opposition far higher than what he's used to. But he also showed up well in the World Cup and Champions League. So for me, he's definitely the actual colossus for Celtic and the back five. You want to put it that way, and everybody else just needs to fit in with about him.
I want to ask you guys a question. Do you think now that we've got 10 days or 7 days between games. We're not playing in the Champions League. Do you think this will give us a wee advantage in terms of resting players and bringing players in? Because I think that's one of the problems that we did have at the start of the season. They were playing players and then they were playing 3 days later. I know people can say they're fit players and they're going to the gym all the time and they do whatever. But I think it's important, especially when you look at last season. Rangers went to the end of Europe and then we played on the Saturday and we racked up the points and we did very well. So I think one of the advantages that we've got is we're totally out of the competitions apart from Scotland.
Mm-hmm. Aye, definitely.
We've got a very strong depth in our team, though, don't we? We've got a very strong depth in our team, don't we, Mark? So,
aye, it's almost two. It's almost two in every position. Unless some positions have got 2 or 3 choices. I mean, I don't like Maeda being up front, but if you include Maeda and Maeda, you could maybe have 4 or 5 options as a striker for Celtic. And I like that.
Talking about Maeda, Mark, I'm a little bit worried that Ange seen Maeda's goal in that Japan game and went, well, this guy could play as a striker. But
I hope no.
And then Will Ferdinand and Gallagher were like, that Maeda looks good. And I'm like, well, have you watched him against Hibs and all these teams? You know.
Well,
looking at Maeda's stats in the World Cup, Regan. So this is what the stats were for all these games that he played. Okay, this is Maeda playing up front. His expected goals ratio was 0.64. He only had 2 shots. Only one was on target, and he had no block shots. He was offside twice, and he was fouled twice. No assists. His pass rate was only 57%, and there were 21 passes. So that's 12 passes completed. Tackles attempted 4, successful tackles 3. So a tackle success of 75%. Now that doesn't sound like he contributes too much going forward, and almost he does a lot more coming back. However, I feel from what I saw of Japan's games, you could argue that he did what he was asked to do, and just run the defence ragged.
I put in a lot of effort, David.
Absolutely, and it almost creates the chances for other people. I mean, people can argue that after the first game, Japan won the game once he was taken off. However, I think he caused the German defence a lot of headaches if he had just composed himself a little bit better and timed his run a lot better. That was a great finish for him. He could have had 2 goals in the World Cup, one against the former world champions. I don't think he's a bad player. I really do really like Maeda. We've got our little wee jokey bet going on right now, Mark, and that's another one added to the list, by the way, that goal.
What's that counting his goals?
I said overall competition space. So
okay. You can add another 5 for all I care.
We'll see, mate. We'll see. The man, I thought he had a good World Cup, Maeda, and obviously he did what it was asked of him. However, we do need, if we want a striker at Celtic, he's got to be a bit more prolific than that. And if he could find his shooting boots like he did in the J League, then I'd be quite happy for him to be our 3rd striker. However, I just don't think he's got what it takes to be scoring the kind of goals that we're expecting to see from at club level. That's my only concern with Maeda. We do see him out on the left wing more often than we do in a striking role.
Aye.
I don't think he's the kind of player that likes to have his back face to goal. He just likes to the running in behind. But if he could just learn to time his run a little bit better, great nuisance. So, and let's be honest, man. If Rio Ferdinand's saying that, I mean, this guy was one of the best centre backs in world football at one point, and he's saying that he'd have found him being the right nuisance. Whether he would have, I'm sure he would have coped with him. But if he could see the attributes that the Japanese manager and Ange Postecoglou sees in him, then we do have a decent player there. I think we do. Technically not very good, but what he brings to the side, I think, is very important.
He pulls players all over the place. I mean, you mentioned Ferdinand would be able to cope with him. I'm pretty sure you're right. But one thing you'd have to do, and that is track him. You'd have to make sure he was within arm's reach, of him. So that creates space for the other players who are able to get in behind, etc. And I agree with you. I think he was asked to do a job for Japan, and he did it so well. I actually think all the Celtic players have been spoken very highly of in the World Cup. Maybe not as much as Barisic. I mean, I seen tweets for their Twitter last night. The other day they are praising Barisic's performance in the World Cup and how far he's got with Croatia and all the rest of it. I don't think he's kicked a ball really. You know what I mean? And I found that a bit funny when I read that actually.
I will. The water boy, he managed to get on due to an injury crisis. Let's be serious here. Anytime I manage to see any of the Croatia game, Barisic was lying on his arse complaining about it looked like he was injured. I'm sure a lot of the Rangers fans were concerned that was going to be another one added to the injury list, but I didn't see him do much apart from sitting on the ground, to be honest. And I'm not just having a dig because he's a Rangers player. I generally didn't see what he was bringing to the side to be made it a pat on the back, other than he was a backup dancer.
Good crosses of the ball. His crosses of the ball are really, really good. That's one thing about him. When he gets to the byline,
definitely.
He's very, very good. I mean, defensively, I think Maeda must give him nightmares even now. But
he does.
He does. But crossing the ball, he's very, very good actually.
Well, we're on the topic of Croatia. Let's just get down to our fireball, okay? Right, I'm just going to give you our fireballs stats over all the last few games. All right. So we'll just look at more of his defense. He obviously hasn't scored any goals. Juranovic has an expected goals of 0.06. He's only had one shot. It was not on target. He wasn't ever caught offside, or he was never fouled. He has one assist. Over all the games he's played so far, he's passed the ball 266 times, completed passes 226. That's an 85% completed pass rate. Tackles attempted 8, successful tackles 8, 100% tackle rate.
Oof.
With no yellow cards and no fouls made. He may have had the game of his life against Brazil. I must say I didn't see most of the game as I was working. I managed to catch the penalty shootout. But from what Twitter was saying, he was the best player on the pitch on the day. A lot of people online, including KFC, were throwing their chicken wings at him. Is it fair to say, Regan, that Mr. Kearney should be apologising to the nation of Croatia for ever questioning the ability of our Croatian international? And can I just say, the Croatian international, does that come with a bit of weight behind it now, that term, our Croatian internationalist? Because this Croatia side have now managed to make it to the semi-finals. This is a Croatia side that made it to the finals 4 years ago. It's now beginning to look like it was no fluke. Juranovic has played every minute, as far as I'm aware, of every game at the World Cup, and they've only conceded 3 goals, and they've come up against a Belgian side, a Brazilian side, who the goal that they scored against them is one of the best team goals that I've seen. That was the most Brazilian goal I've seen in a while. Is it fair to say that Mr. Kearney has an apology to give to the nation of Croatia for ever doubting the ability of our Croatian internationalists?
I mean, I'm no a big JJ fan, but I need to say on Friday he played really well. So I think in a receipt, I think Mark should take the Boise bus on a trip to Croatia as a wee.
Can we invite Miss Croatia with us as well? Could she come as well? Because she's peeps, man.
Man.
Get her on the bus.
She's been the best thing that World Cup, I think.
She's got all the tickets.
Aye, she can.
In all seriousness, we've always had a wee bit of a joke about saying, we've got a Croatian internationalist. We've got a Croatian internationalist that's in the semi-finals of the World Cup, and you can't deny he's contributed massively, I feel, at this World Cup. And he's leaving in January. That's a given for me. He's definitely going. Where's the price tag now, Mark, for a Croatian internationalist? What are you expecting that we should be looking to get for this guy?
Well, I said it last week when I was talking about the Korean boy that we're interested in. The World Cup makes stars, you know what I mean? The World Cup inflates price tags, etc. I think he's going to make a cut out of me and anybody else who's. Listen, he's still the same guy that gets spun in circles after Ross County players. You know what I mean? There's no doubt about it. Up until that performance against Brazil, his World Cup was very meh. You can maybe have some stats here, David. I never knew that. The only time I watched an hour of his game, and in that hour, he gave away two dangerous mistakes he made, and one of them was a goal. The other one was he tried to pass the ball back for about 30 yards and totally miskicked it, and the guy ran through 1-on-1. You know what I mean? The guy ended up cutting outside rather than inside and made a cunt it. That's what I saw. And then any time he was getting the ball, I thought to myself, you said his passing was 85%. For a right back, that might be brilliant. But at the World Cup stage, I'm not sure that's going to be in the top 20 players. I really don't. So I'm quite surprised if 85% impresses anybody, to be quite honest with you.
Mark, does he get into the World Cup team of the year? Will he get into the?
I don't know.
Will he be the right back of the tournament?
I don't know, mate. But what I will say is, you talk about price tags. I think he might get the 15-20 million pound now. I said on the Thursday I still think he's a 10-12 million pound player. I stand by that.
Yes.
I don't think there's going to be players going for this World Cup that are going to end up at West Ham for 30 million, and they'll play 3 games for them and they'll go out on loan. That happens all over the world, and after a World Cup and a Euros, and there's players that show up well. He might just be the flavour of the month for now. I mean, people will be watching that Brazil game and say, right, he was fitting in my team. But the minute he shows up and he starts spinning circles against bog standard teams, they'll know that it was a one-off performance as such. I'm not going to slag the guy just because I'm not a big fan of him. The guy played brilliantly against Brazil, I heard. And see if that's the case, Celtic are going to be the winners here. He would end up with a big contract, I'm pretty sure. But
David.
And I don't know anybody in apology. They are fuck, you know what I mean? I stand by it. I stand by that.
Come on, Mark. This guy kept Vinicius Jr. in his back pocket.
Well,
he had him in his back pocket, Mark.
David, hang on a minute.
One of the best players at the tournament.
Well, if you think he's played against him 3 times, right? 270 minutes, and seeing 270 minutes, we conceded 8 goals. So you think about it, he didn't have anybody in the back pocket. You know what I mean?
Does that go down to Ange's
Does
that go to Ange's team philosophy and tactics? So the 2 of those games came against Real Madrid when we were going gung ho. He's in a much more solid defensive unit as Croatia, who go. Let's face it, Croatia. They did it last time. They did it the last tournament. They go for the penalty shootout. I said if they can get Brazil to a penalty shootout, they go through, because Brazil can't handle a penalty shootout. There's far too much pressure on them as individuals.
That's a danger, David.
On that country.
That's a danger. If you hold a high line, you're going to have people running in behind you. Celtic play a certain style, but out of the 4 fullbacks, Taylor, Ralston, Juranovic, and Bernabei. It's only Bernabei and Juranovic that get caught at the back constantly. The other 2 don't get caught at the back. The other 2 are very aware of their role in the team. I've never seen Taylor, especially, being caught out with a runner behind him in 4 years at Celtic, and that's been with 3 different managers. So no, I think when you sit that deep, that high up the park, and you're going to have people in behind you. You know what I mean, that's a fact. But
absolutely,
you got to have discipline. You got to have discipline within yourself. You got to know. I mean, if Ralston and Taylor can play the exact same role and not get caught in behind, it tells you that there's something just in his mind, and he's certainly not contributing. He's not creating goals in Scotland. He's not stopping many goals in Scotland. I say this, and I say it in all honesty. That game that we won at Ibrox to win 2-1 last season, that was a game changer. We went 6 points ahead that day. But if we could beat that match, it was gone even keel. And that morning he woke up and set his alarm for us to lose that match. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it cost us 1 goal, and a minute later, Arfield's 2 yards out and he skies the ball at the bar. And that was it for another mistake for him. If he scores that, it's 2-0. Rangers win that match, and last season might not finish the way it finished. And there's mistakes like that all in his Celtic career. He gets caught out every match you see him, whether it's Kilmarnock at Celtic Park or whether it's Rangers at Ibrox. He makes mistakes constantly. There's a blind spot to Celtic fans. I hope to God that the scouting teams that are at the World Cup just look at these 4 or 5 matches and just base their evaluation of that guy on the 4 or 5 matches. Because if they took a microscope to his performances in Scotland, you would be getting the money that I think we're going to get now.
No.
We make it 20 million for this guy. Don't forget, Bassey went for 22 million.
Absolutely.
He's a fucking dumpling player.
Regan, KFC said the price asked today is different tomorrow, or whatever they fucking said, something like that. I don't want to get misquoted, but I probably just have been. Regan,
Yesterday's price.
That's it. Yesterday's price is not. Yeah, Regan, did Croatia get to the final? Do they get to the final?
I hope they get to the final, because then it puts on even more to his price tag. I think the biggest guy that'll be rubbing his hands is Peter Lawwell and Mark Lawwell in that boardroom. They'll be thinking, oh my God, we thought we were going to get 10 million for this guy, but we might be getting 20, maybe getting double. Because I heard Alex Scott, she was talking about maybe Manchester United coming in for, and I'm like, what? Man, you coming in for this guy? But
I think they're going for Frimpong from what I hear. They're going for Frimpong.
I'd
It would make sense, but a Dutch manager at the helm at Man United. By the way, Frimpong, a player that's not featured as far as I'm aware in the World Cup yet.
I mean, look, it's one of the great changes, David, that how the mighty have fallen. I think that just shows you how Man U have fallen, because if they're going for Juranovic to be their right back, or Jerry Frimpong, I mean, come on, Man U. I mean, back in the day, Man U were getting the best of the creme de la creme, and now they're getting Juranovic.
Regan, they signed a right back from the Dutch league, and it wasn't. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. What's his name? Is it
Musiala.
Where did they sign him for?
PSV. Feyenoord.
Right, come on. Man United. Right, okay. Feyenoord and Celtic. I'd like to think that we are a bigger club than Feyenoord. I think we could. I think we could beat Feyenoord.
I think Feyenoord have got a better reputation of producing and developing players than Celtic have, mate. I think I couldn't give exact examples, but the Dutch league, the Dutch league spit out 50, 60 million pound players season after season, mate. You know what I mean? Guys like Wade and all this stuff can through that. The Dutch league spit out players that Scottish football just could not. Don't forget, they're allowed to show up in different markets for Scotland. See, because they were there in Europe and they've got different employment laws, they can go into different markets and they can get the very best youth players for really good academies around the world. Celtic can't do that now. And the Dutch, I mean, put it this way, if Ajax sell their second choice centre back, they're getting 20 million. See, Celtic, they're getting 2, or they're getting 3.
Well,
and that's not because they're a bigger club than Celtic. It's just because the Dutch league has got a better reputation across world football than Scotland does, I'm afraid.
Right, so if Juranovic stays in the Dutch league last year, because Regan was making me aware that apparently a Greek newspaper has said that Celtic are willing to consider accept around a bid about 5 to 6 million for Juranovic, a player that was a top goal scorer in the Dutch league last year. Of course, not last year, sorry, the season before. We got him for a measly 2.5 million. Maybe 3 million if you want to add on add-ons or all that kind of stuff. Are we really? If he had stayed in the Dutch league another season and had the same games to goal ratio as he's had in Scotland, what does he go for in the Dutch league? What did he sell him at? 40 million.
Yep.
Aye.
Well, we're willing that apparently. But is that Celtic? Is that Scottish football's fault, or is that Celtic not taking themselves seriously?
It's a bit of both.
I don't think Celtic can do very much. This is the thing. Like, let's go back to why probably the best player, no, not the best, probably the best player that's walked out of Celtic Park in the last 10 years was Van Dijk. I mean, Celtic, all in with the 2 transfers, £20 million for him, 12.5 and 7.5. No, Celtic can only force what the club are willing to pay. I mean, still £15-20 million is good figures for Scottish level. Celtic can't say the guy for Ajax went for 40 million last year, so he went similar. I don't think you sit around a table and they talk like that. I think that would be a defining moment in Scottish football if they started to behave like that. I think if they made a stance where even the likes of Motherwell want £2-3 million for their players rather than the usual 500 grand, I think it would be a turning point for Scottish football. I just don't think we've not got the balls. I don't think we've got the clout for it, mate. I don't think Celtic. I mean, we've got an obsession with selling players. I mean, I was watching that the game yesterday, and there was still folk talking on Twitter about how much we're going to get for Juranovic. Know the fact that in their minds that they're losing a world-class player. I mean, cause for laughter on that, but know the fact we're going to be losing a world-class player.
Croatian internationalist, Mark, semi-finalist here, mate.
Well, listen, mate, you can be the tallest, the worst in a family. It doesn't mean at all. You know what I mean? I'm not entirely sure who he's up against. I keep up against somebody that plays superb. I really don't know. The guy's played really well, for what I've heard. I'm not going to take it away from him, but I don't think why we're so obsessed. We accuse the Scottish press of what maybe our players. The minute we see a player, we go after the second game, we're going, oh, he's worth £20 million. I think Russell mentioned it before.
Yeah. We wear it as a badge of honour, mate. We wear it as a badge of honour, when we should be annoyed that we're losing a player of that calibre. If we're going to sell a player at 20 million, we've got a cracking player on our hands. Why are we almost happy about him leaving? We should be raging.
We can't wait, mate. We can't wait. And it's an interesting point that Russell was saying. I was going to say there, like, when we buy a player, we are saying they're worth £3-4 million. See, when we go to sell a player, we're timesing that by 5 automatically. You know what I mean? You can't have it both ways. I think if you start inflating the market in terms of the money that you're bringing in, teams are going to start asking for a lot more money after you for their players as well. I mean, we've done well. Celtic are short on a £2 million IO and the Waitrose. I don't think we're going to get that. I think any idea that we're going to go to the next level, I think it's been totally kiboshed with the new man that's come in. I think he's the one that's got to deliver on the message to the board from the CEO. And delivery is everything. I think when you're trying to put a proposal to somebody and he's got to be the one delivering this news to the board and make big decisions, he's supposed to be impartial, but if he's delivering that message, I don't know what way he's going to spin it, and his opinion will be asked. If just quickly on him, see if his role was that irrelevant, and so what? As Abdi's saying about his role, then why make the stands to upset the full support to bring him in?
Yep.
If it's a position that's a very low level, so what position, they could have hired anybody to do it. They could have just scouted the market and got somebody in, but they brought this guy in because they know that he is the man. He's the key man at the club, and he's going to still be the key man at the club. So I don't think we're going to go down that road. I think he'll still negotiate big fees relatively for Celtic. And to answer your very, very first question, I think you might just see the £15 million for Juranovic now. I didn't think we would get that for him, but I think after that World Cup performance, I think clubs, there's always like players that come out of World Cup is fashionable, and I think owners of clubs feel like they need to reward their fans after each tournament by buying the fashionable players. He might get a move to one of the clubs that me and Russell and I think Regan laughed about, and he's going to make a contest. But do you know what? The winner of all that is going to be Celtic. Because by the way, see if we get £50 million for him, his replacement was still a £3 million guy that plays in the MLS. Doesn't matter how much we get for him, it's not going to make a difference. And if that isn't Peter Lawwell's stamp on the club, then I don't know what it is.
I totally agree with Mark.
Regan, well, I'm going to move on now because we're getting on a wee bit here, but I want to talk about the curious case of Yosuke Ideguchi. This is a player that's been linked away in January, probably heading back to the J League. This is a guy that's yet to feature this year. He's only made 3 appearances last year with 0 goals, 0 assists. This is his second stint on the UK, by the way. Obviously, he signed to Leeds a few years ago. Didn't make an appearance for them, but I think it was down to international clearances. So I think work permit. So I think he went out on loan. Is it just bad luck for Yosuke Ideguchi in this over on these shores, or is he just not good enough? What is going on with our main man Gucci?
I think he's a
man from Japan.
I think he's about both, David, because you spoke to like the Japanese experts, like your Dan Ortiz, who's supposed to be an expert. I don't know if he is, right enough, but he's supposed to be the expert. But anyway, so he was saying that Ange brought him in because he's seen him as a kind of youth. He can play a multitude of places in the park, and he can get the best of him. But I don't actually know if Ange solely saw a place for him. I just think he thought, well, this guy can play a multitude of places in the park. We can maybe try and fit him in. I don't know if it was maybe he was like a long-term project, but I think it's probably best for him if he goes back to the J League and we bring in somebody else I see would be linked to a guy from the Egyptian league, David. So I think that would be more of Ange's taste. But I think we had a good in that game when he played it. I think it was Alloa, the Scottish Cup against Barry Ferguson's team. I think we all knew that game was going to be a bit of a test because if you look at it, we all knew that it was going to be a bit rough and tumble being on that plastic park, and obviously them playing 10 men behind the ball, and they've got shopkeepers and people that work at IKEA and all that playing their team. So we knew they were going to kick players and stomping players or whatever else. I mean that was a game that McGregor got injured and bashed his face. He was out for 2 months. So I think it was just a bad luck as well, David.
I don't think it was said he was this player that raised a few eyebrows over in Japan that Ange was going to bring him to Celtic, which right off the bat is a little bit of a concern for me when we brought him. I almost wonder if it's just a case of, when you go to the supermarket and you know what you're going in for, and you end up coming out with a couple of things, down that middle aisle. That looks good. I'll get that. It's only it's half price. It's got the yellow sticker on it. I'll take one of them. I think that's what's happened. It's been, I didn't actually really need that. I wonder if I can return it. I've got the receipt. See if I can return it.
Well, I think you said that it's a curious case. I mean, he's not Benjamin Button. He's just Barry White. Simple as that, mate. You know what I mean? He's fucking red rotten. I said before, he reminds me of Billy Classy. I mean, that guy came in and he said that he was called a lion by his teammates. I said at the time, a lion bastard. He was fucking shite. I mean, he just fits that mould. I think some players just come in and sometimes they just need one game to kickstart. They need, even if it's a goal or it's just a good performance or a moment in a match, like Ryan Christie at Murrayfield. Speaking of Murrayfield, I hope Harry Kane gets a game for rugby team next season. But no, I think he just never got that. I think anytime he looked like he was going to get minutes, he just looked like, I mean, even when you see him celebrating the trophy win, I mean, he's just a Marvin Compere figure. I think he's just a guy that's just going to be a case of somebody saying, you remember him? I mean, the only image I've got of him this season is he was a big part of Greg Taylor's celebration at Tynecastle. He managed to get himself. I mean, what I will say is anybody that comes to Celtic Park with a haircut like that deserves not to get a match, in my opinion. I mean,
Mark, when he came in, he told us to call him Gucci. I don't think we've got Gucci. I think we should just call him Mark. Just call him Primark. No, I think that's Gucci, that's what we got him. We thought we got Gucci. We ended up with pound stitch. It's brilliant, Paul McFarlane. We're on the same boat there, mate. Right, so there's not much else to say about Ideguchi. I think he's away in January. Sorry to see him go, just because I was hoping it would have worked out for him. I don't think Ange's had many misses. I think that's probably one of them.
Well, he has. Well, that's a myth. That's a bit of a myth. I can name you. How many do you want me to name you?
We've got plenty of time. Pass on. You start naming them, mate.
Right, okay.
I'm happy to hear them.
So far, I'd say Burnaby's a miss. Scales is a miss.
Sorry, who's the first one?
Burnaby.
No, mate, I'm not having that. I'm not having that.
Right, we'll push that away. I'll give you another 10. Scales. Right? Scales. Moy. I will go.
I think Moy's going to hit the ground running when he comes back from Australia. From his stint in Australia. I think it's going to be...
He bought four number 6. He's bought, right? A lot of them was rotten. Right? Okay, Scales. Who's the other boy that went to Motherwell?
Was Scales an Ange signing though? We've had this argument before. Is Scales an Ange signing?
I'll still give you more than that. There's loads of them.
I'm not arguing. I just want you to rattle them off. Keep going.
Right. Okay. So the 4 number 6s, right? They're all rotten, right? And then I'm going to include Scales, right? Burnaby, I think Burnaby's not going to be a player for Celtic.
I'm not having that. I'm not having that, mate. He's played 3 games and had 2 assists. One of them was come on. He's a young lad from Argentina. I mean, he's got a...
What's the matter with his face? What's the matter with his face?
Well, come on, right? We said that we need to allow Kobayashi time to settle in from Japan. Why? What difference is it from a boy from Argentina, a guy that? Come on, I
think it's been kind to him. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I don't think for a minute. Let's just get real here. Andrew sat at a table and said, I need £3.5 million. They went with her. He said, well, there's a left back who's going to come in and sit and be second choice to the guy we got for Kilmarnock. There's no danger. He's been brought to be number one. He was bought to be the ready replacement for Greg Taylor this season. He showed up at the training ground and they went like that. Shit. That's a fact. I mean, if he was anything, if he was close to Greg Taylor, he'd be in the starting lineup. He's never near Greg Taylor.
Do you think £3 million's a lot of money to spend on a player to get straight in our starting lineup? Because we've argued, the argument is we spent £6 million on. We've said that £6 million isn't a lot of money anymore.
How much
half of that we spent on a left back. So is that first time? Is that first choice?
Is it?
That's what that. Because the way I look at it, mate, and I get
that's the most expensive left back I've ever bought.
But in today's market, it's not a lot of money though. We've been saying
no, but he's the most expensive player we've ever bought in that position.
Would you say Greg Taylor's worth more than £3 million now?
I say Greg Taylor worth about £5 million, £6 million.
Right. Easy. So he's at £5 million players ahead of him.
No, that wasn't the question. The question was about how much he cost to buy. And I was saying to you, well, is it a lot of money? Then I don't think, for me, I wish Celtic would spend £10 million on a player. I really do. I think Celtic should be spending that on any position. Well,
so £3 million isn't, but so £3 million's a fraction of that. Then, mate. That's my point.
No, but £3.5 million is. And I think Bolingoli was roughly about the same. He's the most expensive player we've ever bought, and it's 2022. And that's
misunderstood Bolingoli. He was misunderstood, mate.
So,
just a shagger.
But I will good on him. But I don't think for a minute that he was. Listen, there's no danger he was bought to say, we'll see you next season, mate. See how you play. He's come in. He's either been a player that he thought he is. It's a fact. If he was a player that he thought he was, he'd be playing.
Yep. 3 goals, 2 assists. That's all I'll say on that.
We'll move right.
3 goals.
Sorry,
he's not scored, does he?
He's a left back. It's not his job to score goals.
You used to say he scored 3 goals.
No, I said he's. No. I said 3 games, 2 assists.
No, you said goals, but I understand what you mean. That's fine,
okay, apologies.
No, that's all right, mate. That's it. His performance is very good, David. I don't think. I mean, he did really well for that goal at Perth. I mean, his ball in that for Giakoumakis was brilliant. So was McCarthy's involvement in that game, but I still say he's a dud and all. You know what I mean? There's players. I think it's a bit of a myth. I think there's the first team ready players that he's brought on have been by and large very good signings. But there's a lot of misses as well. I'm not saying it's 50-50, but there's a lot of players he brought in that you're going, right, if they left them more when they matter a bit. I mean, I don't think for a minute that if any of the midfield left any number 6s, any of the forum left them more, anybody would be balling their arse.
No.
Nah, you're probably right there, mate. I couldn't even tell you who all our number 6s are because they didn't get a game.
Ideguchi and McCarthy. You know what I mean? And if you're playing Matt O'Reilly at number 6 and you've already bought 4, it tells you that the 4 of them are shite. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? And listen, I think if Ange makes 10 signings, see that the 3 or 4 that he's buying to improve the team, I think the 3 and 4 will improve the team. The rest will be squad players, but I don't think it's. I do get your point. I understand your point, but I don't think it's accurate for when the narrative is that he's always everyone he hits is in target. I don't think it is because no manager can do that.
I wouldn't say he's 100% right either. No,
I think so. Maybe I misunderstand it. I think the players he's bought to impact the team have impacted the team. I don't think he's thought that, and I do genuinely believe that. I don't think Celtic as a club at board level make decisions to bring in £3.5 million left backs to be second choice, David. I really don't. I think unless they feel like this guy's got to develop there 2 or 3 years or Greg Taylor's for the off, I don't think they make a decision like that. But he's been brought in the summertime to be up and running by now and be the first. In their minds, he was first choice by now, and he's never near it. Greg Taylor has kicked on, don't get me wrong, and Greg Taylor played brilliant last year as well. I think the Greg Taylor improvement has been used as a wee bit of up yourself to anybody who thinks that Greg Taylor wasn't the player that he was last year, you know what I mean? But it's also been used as a way of folks saying how good a job that Ange did, when really the reality is that the player who he's bought to replace Taylor isn't at the level. And you don't need to make excuses for Ange. Ange is a better man than any of us.
I think it says a lot of how well Taylor's done as well, though. Like, we can't always just say, oh well, the boy we brought in is just no good enough. Well, the boy that he was brought into for competition. I wouldn't say replace, competition. Is I actually lost my train of thought there. I think Taylor. That post. I know. I thought I'd muted the mic. I do apologise. I'm so professional. 5 minutes. We're like 35 minutes. We've got plenty to talk about. You can just fucking wait.
She can wait.
I'll be there in a minute, darling. Sorry.
Flying slipper.
Regan. I want to get your take on something. We're going to move on before I get any more black eyes from the judge.
Not at all, mate.
I'm going to go on to the return ticket as the last feature of the show. The idea that I've done for this, as I explained the last time, was we all have busy lives. We can't always catch every show that's on the bus. However, I like to try and get a wee snippet of maybe a show that you've missed, that you thought, oh shit, I need to go back and watch that. Well, I'm going to give you a little preview of something that was said, Regan. So,
David.
Sorry, mate.
I said, how dare you miss a show?
How dare you miss a show? We've sent Mark Carey to your door to hand out a letter of concern. Right, so TNF, Mark. The discussion was brought up a lot in the comments about players coming back from returning to Celtic. You had your point of view put across on the show, and as did our main man Boise, and so did Connor Carr. Well, I've got Connor's comment here that I just want to play, just to get just a wee sort of recap on what he'd said, and then I want to get Regan's point of view on a possible. Would it be good to bring a Moussa Dembele back if it was possible? And that's what I just make a big if it was possible. So this is what Connor had to say on it.
I think he was a cut above. He was really, strong and powerful, and he had an eye for goal, and he absolutely used to love to bully Rangers, and But when I'm laying out all those characteristics, they remind me of a certain Georgie Shack matches when I lay them all out. So I feel like we could take him back. It would be great, but I've seen this show too many times. I've seen it with players like Emilio Zagiri coming back from the second spell. It did not work out for him very well. It wasn't the same player.
Regan,
good point.
Moussa Dembele, would you take him back? First of all, would you if it was possible, if we could afford his wages, we can spend the $4 million that's apparently been said to be the price tag for him. Would you have him back at Celtic tomorrow?
I would drive Dembele back in my puller chair, David. I mean, I would get him,
and you have your basket at the front.
I would get him to Glasgow Airport and I'd say, jump on the back, Dembele, because you're coming back to Celtic Park. I mean, I do understand Connor's point. I'm a Louis Zagiri, but I know that a certain Celtic fan that travel around the world takes some plaudits in getting him back because he supposedly got his number. But anyway, that. Anyway, so,
aye, don't know where that is, don't we?
I do think that Celtic should be getting him back because I think Dembele, he's a much better player than he was when he was at Celtic. The Celtic was just he was at the early stages of his time as a player, and he's been to a Champions League semi-final as well, David.
Yes, he has. He's won a La Liga title as well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be great. I don't agree we should be getting Big Victor back. I was a wee bit surprised when he was winding people up the other day, but I thought he was actually coming back. But he's no, thank God for that. But yeah, but that would be a typical Peter Lowell signing out of that Peter Lowell drawer that Matt talks about quite a lot. But yeah, I think the belly would suit Angie's system down to a T. I think he would. But I think
I'd take him back in a heartbeat, mate. Take him back in a heartbeat. Connor used an example of Zagiri returning as an example of where it doesn't work. I don't subscribe to using a 30+ Zagiri who was never the same player after that horror tackle after his first season, by the way, as a good example of why when a player returning to Celtic doesn't work. I mean, this is a player, we're talking about a French striker who's in his prime at 26 years old, who ran this league ragged at 19 years old. absolutely bossed this league. We're getting a guy that's went on to Lyon and played 118 appearances and scored 55 goals. Like you said, he's been a Champions League final. He's been at Atletico Madrid. Granted, he only played 5 games, but he got a league title out of that. This guy is a powerhouse. A 26-year-old French striker who I don't see. If he's not obviously getting as much game time at Lyon for whatever reason. I think because they brought back Lacazette, and obviously he's a bit of a cult hero there, and perhaps that's why he's not getting as much game time there. But if we could afford to get Mr. Dembele back, then one huge statement from Celtic, I think. Was Connor saying he wouldn't cut it? Was Connor trying to suggest that he wouldn't cut it in this Ange system, this Ange team? I don't know.
I think
That's what Connor can answer.
I think I had Connor call him shite. I mean, he was slagging him there.
He said a poor man Giacomakis is what I think is what he said.
He did. I think he even mentioned match fixing and everything with him. I don't know what I put buzz in his mouth, but I would consult a lawyer if I was him. No, I think I think he broke a record in France. Did you know scored 20 goals the fastest for a French player playing in that league or something? I'm sure he broke some sort of record for he got to 20 goals faster than any Lyon player or whatever. And so many, he broke some record for him. I know that. He scored 2 at the Etihad against Man City in a quarter final of the Champions League. I'm pretty sure they put them out. This guy is a serious operator. If France maybe were looking at strikers, I think he would maybe be the next one in that conveyor belt. I think he's definitely due a call up to that first team squad. I'd take him back in a second. I agree. I don't think he would come back. It's hypothetical, but he'd be a dynamite signing. My only concern
about loan?
Is,
what about a loan? Even a loan, 6-month loan. There's Monty Desmond managed to find 65k a week for Robbie Keane on a 6-month loan. Is it out the question that Moussa Dembele? What was it? I can't remember. I don't want to put words in Connor's mouth, but I think he said that something about Ange Postecoglou, all the memes about him being the Sopranos, and it's not personal, it's just business. I'm sorry, it's bad business if you have a Moussa Dembele in our squad and you don't start him every week. I don't care if it's Kyogo, Giacomakis, anybody. Personal or not, whether it's fantasy and just it's a wee bit going down nostalgia lane there of it. He feels that he's gonna have to play him. I'm sorry. Ange wants to play him. If he has a Moussa Dembele on his side, he wants to play him. It's nothing to do about trying to appease fans. He wants him in. He'd have him in that starting lineup every week. I'm sorry. And if he doesn't, then that's just bad. That's bad for business. That's what I call it. Bad for business.
If Lyon want to cash in on him, I think they're going to have to do it this window because the man comes. I think but it could well be a case that if he wants game time and Lyon are going to sell him, I don't see a loan happening because the loan would only work out better for Dembele. I think if Lyon want rid of him, they need to sell him in January and maybe get a couple of million. I think 4 million was quoted as what Lyon want. They can afford that. Yep. But you're right, they couldn't afford $80,000 a week wages. I think he will get that Premier League move. I think somebody will take him on. And if you score 10 goals in that league, you're 50 million quid. You know what I mean?
Arsenal needs a striker. They've got Jesus. Looks like he might be out for the rest of the season after a knee operation, or at least for the majority of the rest of the season. He would suit them. He would suit them perfectly fine.
I think Arsenal love a French striker. I'm not just talking about Giroud. I think Arsenal they like that kind of market, don't they? And I think that he would just look good in that strip and all. I think he would settle in pretty well at Arsenal. And I don't know how they're still playing now, but they were top of the league in England the last I heard. So he plays well in a winning team. He plays well. I mean, I'm sure he didn't look like a place in the 5 games against for Atletico Madrid. I'm sure he didn't look like a sore thumb. I think he would have showed up well. He's definitely showed up well. And Lyon, you said 55 goals in 109 games. That's a 50% strike rate. That's excellent. We need to get that lassie for the BBC to start doing his strike rate percentage, man, because she was saying that's a goal every 5 minutes. That's lassie said. She was saying that a guy that scored 20 goals in 50 matches was a goal a game or something. So I need to get her in. Maybe she was in the accounts at Ibrox.
David, let me make one point that came out in the media on Friday, right? So it's this year's Scottish Cup. So did you hear the fact that you have to pay 500 grand if you want VAR in place?
Oh, fuck.
Is that right?
So if you heard this, so if you're not a Premier League, if it's not a Premier League game, so say you are Dundee United versus Dumbarton. So then you will decide in your game whether you want to have VR in place.
That's right. We're
What?
one of the ones that's getting it. So see your game against Kilmarnock, I think that's got VAR, but Aberdeen's game hasn't got VAR.
Yep. It's
So
because
live on telly.
it's because we've already got it in place. So
Aye.
St Johnstone versus Rangers has got it in place because the two Premier League clubs have already got it. But every other game would not have VR in place. But
Nonsense.
if they do want it, they need to pay £1 million between them to get it in place.
It should be for nobody or everybody. You can't lose a match. You can't lose a match or win a match on a VAR decision when your opposition in the next round might have lost or won the game on a different basis. It didn't work, mate. I think is it Steve Conroy, the referee, is on that referee podcast. He said it was a ridiculous show. He said it was a nonsense. He was raging with it, and only Scotland can fuck up something that's so simple. They've sat in a meeting and said to them, and somebody said, "We'll just make it for some games," and they went, "Aye." I mean, that's past their voting. That's past. That's what I think the SFA meetings or SPFL meetings, they must just be a jolly up. They must just go there once a week or once a month, have a couple of drinks and a bit of lunch, and just go like, "Aye, that sounds good to me." Just carry on the conversation with somebody else across the table. The decisions that came out of Hampden are routinely ridiculous, but this one stands out for me. We didn't have time to talk about it on Thursday, but it broke on Thursday. How stupid a decision that is. Can you imagine, for talk's sake, we're playing, just say Partick Thistle, and we get a goal, it's a yard offside, but Rangers lose a goal, lose out a goal because it's an inch offside in the same night. The Rangers fans would be within their rights to complain about that, and so would we. So I don't think it works. It should every rule should be universal.
So we're just going to have to hope that we play against a Premier League team because of VAR. But then what happens if we're playing semi-final against Arbroath and we get a goal in the last minute to make it 1-0 and it's ruled in for offside, but it's 2 yards on, and then you know what I mean? It's just like we can't go around and say, well, it only happens in some games, but some games it isn't. It should be Aberdeen. They're complaining because they're playing Darvel, who are top of the Juniors League, and they're saying, well, I don't know how Darvel can afford 500 grand to put in the VAR. You know,
no,
it's like, what is happening to the?
They'll probably make 40 grand out of that weekend. See that match, they probably make about 40 grand profit against Aberdeen. See the time they pay all the wages, pay all the expenses. They probably make about 40 grand if I luck out of that match. I mean, it's they're not going to be making millions. So £500,000, they'd rather lose the match. They'd rather just not play the match than spend 500 grand on something. That would bankrupt them. I mean, they'd be out the game altogether. £500,000. It's ridiculous, mate. I think there should be, like, say, Scottish League and the Championship should be paid for by the SPFL board. The clubs should be paying for that. Below that, it should be a case if you get promoted, there should be like a payment plan put in place by that league itself. No club should be out of pocket for something that's a rule in the game. I don't see Celtic getting a £50 charge for the referee's kit when he referees a match at Celtic Park. So why should we be paying for a piece of kit? Don't forget, see, refereeing is actually it's a part of it's a business within the SPFL. So we actually hire referees off the SFA. So see our SFA, we need to pay them for that pleasure. You guys get paid. So that's a product that we're paying for. We shouldn't be paying for the equipment too. But you don't hire a painter and then buy brushes. I'm sorry. I mean, it's fucked up. But the fact of the matter is, it is fucked up. But we've found a way to make something stupid look even more stupid, and that's the most Scottish thing I've ever seen.
Well, on that note, guys, it's 12:20. We've covered a lot of topics, more than I thought we were going to be able to talk about, because they said the lack of Celtic news that I thought we were going to get today was worrying me. But of course, as always on the bus, we find stuff to talk about, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more to talk about on Monday on the Monday Club and all the other shows going forward. I just want to thank everyone for watching today. you've spent your Sunday morning with us, and I can only thank everyone, including yourself, Mark, including yourself, Regan, for joining me. So take care, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
His comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.